Hi there, everybody. Welcome to Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh MacAnthony. And I got to make sure I get this right this week. It's El Presidente and co-owner of Peterborough United. So today we're going to be catching up with Darragh on bailouts, training camps, cup competitions, and we have a lot more lined up as well. We're also going to be answering some of your questions, and we'll end with an interesting question I'm looking forward to the answer about bouncing back from adversity. So Darragh, how are you doing? How's family?
Well, good, pal. Speak to the family on FaceTime every day. They went back to school obviously at the end of last. So that was obviously a lot of anxiety going on around the house, not about COVID, but about the instructions coming from the school. My son's gone to school, so where our school is, you got separate buildings for middle school, junior school, and high school, and he's never been to the high school bit. So we're waiting like right up to the day before for a map on where he's going, which classes. I mean, it was just a fucking clusterfuck. And then it was like they had to homeschool on Wednesday and Thursday, and up until Tuesday night, you're waiting for Zoom links for like all the subjects. So school's had 6 months, and then all summer to prep for this, and then it's last minute ban. Some people didn't even get the Zoom codes. So there's already, as a child, you've got anxiety going back to school. If you've gone into middle school, if you've gone into high school, you've got children, and as they get older, you'll understand. My son's 14, my daughter's 13, my youngest is 11. So there was a lot of anxiety over, well, where are we going? How are we doing this? And then when we were doing the homeschooling, we haven't got the Zoom link, so that's link's not working. So for me, I was getting more and more angry, because obviously my wife's like ringing me and updating me over here, and I already had the hump at the school anyway, because they took the option of 2-day-a-week schooling. I pay 85 grand a year for 3 kids in private school, and other private schools are all open fully Monday to Friday, and our school took the option of 2 days a fucking week, which I think is a disgrace. And I just hate what it's doing to our children, this whole pandemic, and we know factually already how this what happens in children with this, and I think as parents we should be given the choice. And I get the school are trying to do the best they can, but I felt as a compromise 2 days out of 5, kind of homeschooling. And you had the choice to opt in, as you did, Phil, where you can stay at home 5 days. Well, I felt like, well, why not give people a choice of full 5 days, stay at home 5 days, and do 4 days in or 1 day at home. And then obviously the day they went to school, it was all organized well when they were driving in, your temperature checks. And, my kids have got to wear masks then for like 8 hours a day. I got pictures sent to me of when they went for their lunch. And there's my kids sat 20 feet away from all the, they're all sat 20 feet away from each other with masks. And they're eating their lunch. And I understand there's a pandemic. I understand the virus. I understand the risks. But I also understand, to do this to children, it kind of drove me mad. And, because I was always of that mind of, look, the older teachers, pay them to stay home and do the video conferencing so they're not at risk. There's an element that you always worry about any teacher over the age of 60, and there's a few in that school. So it's kind of like, look, you stay home, you do the video conferencing until there's a vaccine, and then the younger teachers be at school. And then the school's kind of putting pictures up of some of the older teachers are back at work, and the lower school for the under 9s is fully open. They're open Monday. You got kids hugging the teachers who are like 60 years old. So you're looking at all this and going, I just hate the whole, it's all being politicized, like our kids' education. And I know they're having that row in the UK now at the moment about schools. Other European countries are just piling ahead and opening. So knowing my kids for the next, and the school said to us, oh, we're only doing it till the 8th of September and then it'll be full-time schooling. But I also know, I don't believe that. I said to the school, your credibility is in doubt. You told us in July it'll be full-time schooling. Yeah. Changed that 3 weeks later. And now I believe you're basically bowing to probably the teachers to compromise with them. And come the 8th, we'll get told, guaranteed, that this will be like this till January, where our kids are in school 2 days a week. My middle child, I can see she's not depressed, but she's down. Because obviously she loves school. And, my son, he'd stay at home all week if he could, you know what I mean? But so it's affecting the kids in different ways. I hate that. This virus, look, people have lost their lives to this virus, and we know the risks and what we have to live with through it. But to see now our children who are in that lowest percentage of risk, and I get everyone's argument before you start screaming, they can older people, they can spread it to grandparents in the house, they can spread. I totally understand all of that. Well, I always said this, you have a choice when you're a parent. If you live with if my dad lived with us, I'd pay for an apartment and put him out of the house. I wouldn't sacrifice my children's schooling. If my dad lived with it, I'd move my dad. My 3 children need to be educated properly. and not by a computer screen. Like I said, with the older teachers, you look after them. You're already got kids wearing masks, you got social distancing. They should be in school every day. So hopefully 2021, I said to them the other day, look, it's going to be fucking choppy from now till Christmas. It's just going to be like this. It's politics, it's nonsense, it's shit. It's experts who think they know data, who don't know data, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Until January, it's just going to be a fucking shit show. And hopefully 2021, and they will have multiple vaccines. And if you don't want to take a vaccine, well, that's your fucking choice. And you can still wear a mask, but the rest of us need to get on with life.
Yeah, it's, no consistency is tough. Our oldest is 7, and, we were told that, so we had the choice, face to face or doing it remotely. We decided we'd do it remotely, at least for the first few weeks. We're told that school was going to start on a certain date, which is actually, I think, August the 21st. Yeah. Booked this trip. So, we're doing this. I'm out in California right now. And then when we booked the trip, they said, we've changed our mind. We're going to start on August the 10th. And so, now he's supposed to be, but they're not marking anyone as absent if they don't show up. It was to do with the teachers' unions and getting paid. And so, now lessons are happening and, you're trying to get him to log on and he's throwing himself around like a fish after 2 minutes of staring at the screen. So
it's mad. And the teachers,
we're going to see how it goes.
For the unions, the teachers' unions, it's been bad in some of the states in America. Like I know the ones in New York and California are like, we're not going back to school until you defund the police. They start bringing politics into it. Well, for me, they should all be fucking sacked. At the end of the day, you're paid to teach. If you have the choice, stay home and teach, fine. If not, either go to school or find another career. I know that sounds ruthless, but this is our children we're talking about. At the end of the day, what makes, why are teachers more important than people who have to go to work normally day to day here? And I know any teacher listening might get the hump of me for saying that, but what makes you so different and special compared to other people who have to go out of their house every day and take those risks and go to work? So for me, teachers need to be in school and they need to be teaching our children, because that person in that job's got less risk of getting COVID than somebody who goes out, say, on a bus to go to work here in the UK and work in a supermarket or work in an office building or work at a football club, at the end of the day. So it drives me mad, the whole thing. Our kids need to be in school.
Well, let's go into some happier news. I saw this week that work was back underway on the new stadium. So, if you could share a little bit of an update, and I'd love to know kind of when you think about milestones to getting the stadium open, what's next on the horizon?
My partners very much are involved in that. It's not that I want to stay out of it, but I don't put a ton there because Randy in particular is putting a lot of work into it. He's working with Trevandi, the stadium, the firm behind who's going to find the construction company and all of that. The milestone was we released a little website, a video. We know the capacity we want. We put out a little video with where the stadium is going to be on the embankment. It's the embankment project. We want to be open and built by 2023. We feel we can do that. We feel we can raise the money to do that. We're working really strongly with the council now on certain milestones to happen. One of them was the other day. Another one's going to be in 3 months. We're currently buying our current stadium. So there's a lot of positive stuff happening there. For a club like us to be self-sufficient, to really become, you got your 3 tiers for me for football clubs. You got top tier, you got lower tier, 3,000 fans, 4,000 fans, middle tier clubs. We need to get up to the higher echelon of the middle tier of being a football club, where we're self-sustainable. We've got crowds of 12, 13, 14,000 as opposed to 7, 8 at the moment in an old shithole of a stadium. We need to, there's a lot of new families. You were talking before about you moving to various states because of your work. A lot of families moved into the city of Peterborough over the last 5 years. It's so close to London. It's good prices for property. So people can go to work in 45 minutes by train. So they basically located their families to Peterborough. A lot of those families wouldn't come to our stadium, the wives, the kids, and enjoy the experience. Stadium, we feel we're going to open up to another 100, 200,000 people that live in the city of Peterborough, that we can give them an experience. They'll become proper fans, full-time fans, buy season tickets, enjoy the experience, have kids, have nice toilets, bathrooms, nice restaurant facilities. So the stadium is also going to be a 24/7 stadium. In other words, not just a football thing. It's for events, to have events. We learned that from going to Budapest on a trip to see how the stadium was operated. It's a business. It's not just basically 20 matches a year or 25 games a year. It's concerts, it's business, conferences. It's, you name it, there's going to be so much stuff on site. Good for the city, good for employment. So a lot of good things are going to happen with this kind of £50 million pound project over the next couple of years.
So I'm sure that you've explained this, in other forums before. So forgive me if it's a question you've answered. But you talked about buying London Road, the current ground before moving into the new one. What's the purpose on buying the old ground when you're not going to be around, for another? Well, you're going to be there for a couple of years and then you're going to move out.
Well, because we pay like rent of nearly 500 grand a year. Mm-hmm. If you add that up for the next 3 years or whatever else, so we may as well own it. Which is also helpful in the negotiations when we're moving to the new stadium.
Right.
And then down the line, things that can happen with where that stadium is that we're buying. So it just made financial sense to own it instead of wasting more dead money in rent. That was something important, especially to my other partner, Jason. He definitely wanted to own it. So he spearheaded that and pushed it. And that's close.
Sure. So I have to ask this, given that every time we talk, ends up being reported by the local press. It's the ongoing, will he, won't he transfer around Ivan Toney. I wonder if you got any updates you can share. And I say this bearing in mind that we're recording this on Sunday and it'll go out on Wednesday, so a lot can change in 4 days' time. But as of Sunday, where are we?
Like I said on Sky the other day, look, we've got a player a lot of clubs want. We're in no rush. We've actively got 4 clubs trying to do deals. We had a new one enter the fray the other day. While I was at Mansfield at the pre-season game. Myself and Baz got a call and an email from a Premier League club that inquired about him and one other player. It was like a double deal they wanted to do. So they were asking for a price. And then that goes then it's part of their recruitment meeting, and then they come back to negotiate. So that's part of the course. There's other Premier League clubs who are coming back now next week for pre-season training. So things will heat up over the next 2 weeks. He's training. He played in a game yesterday. First, we had a behind closed door game. We lost the Lincoln fixture. So our 2 squads played each other for 75 minutes for fitness, and Ivan scored the winner. So he's looking sharp. And then on Tuesday, we play Stoke under 21s at St. George's Park. And I think we play, I want to say, is it Derby? It's a championship club, a first team Wednesday, which would be a really, really good test.
So you talked about recruitment meetings, that Premier League teams, Championship teams may have. Are they basically, do they take the form of they start calling up and seeing what the market price is for certain talent and then pull that in and then kind of make a plan, say, okay, this guy is available for 10 million, this guy is available for 7, this guy's available, what do we need and how does it all start to fit together?
So you'd have your director of football who would be in discussions with the manager. They would then have the MD involved as well. A lot of the times, I know at one club in Chile, the MD would then report to the owner or whoever is representing the owner. So there's 4 or 5 people involved. And they'll go, look, that's who we want. So the MD in advance of speaking to the owner finally will be like, well, let me get a price on that. Then that news will be delivered. Look, that's the player we want. That's what the club, say Peterborough, want for them. What do you want to do? Then that's left to the owner then to digest. And if they decide if they can do it or not do it, then bids start getting made. Sometimes they might not make a bid because they think, well, that's just not affordable. So, that's where it is. That's how it works. Yeah. With our club, it's I run all the football recruitment. Barry obviously works for me. My partners tend to stay out of that. They have their own areas of the club they focus on. And then, in fairness, they give me carte blanche in the recruitment. So, with my own analysts and scouts, we'll always have players. We speak to the manager for positions he wants. The manager will have some of his. We'll meet in the middle and go, right, there's plan A, plan B, plan C. Then I'll engage Barry to go and speak to clubs. Sometimes I'll do it myself. And again, we get prices back. We start making bids. We start talking to agents. And we try and make the deal happen. So, we signed Ethan Hamilton last week, ex-Man United central midfielder, a youngster, 21. We've been speaking to his agent for 2 weeks. And that was off the back of the gaffer. In fairness, he was like, one of the slots he wanted filled. And he was on the list. He'd been on my scouts list there. But my manager had said to me, what about Ethan Hamilton? He was on our list last summer. Somebody we feel that, could be a valuable asset to the squad. So Barry got on to the agent. A deal was then negotiated for 2 weeks. And eventually the deal was done that I okayed the day before he came in last week.
So from a manager perspective, you've talked before about the work that you do in terms of identifying talent and the scouting side of things. Now, does your manager come to you and say, okay, these are the 5 positions that I want? Or will there be some, you're going and your team are going and saying, these are where we think the gaps are that we can upgrade? And those positions may be different from what the manager's looking for.
So on that side, it's usually I have an idea anyway. I know the squad really well. But it's always the manager's for him to say, I need another right wing back or I need another centre back or whatever. We started speaking in March about, are we going to be a championship club? This is what we're going to need. If we're going to be League One again and we keep these players, if we let these go, we're going to need maybe more competition at right wing back. We're going to need an extra centre half on the left side. We might need one more CM, and we'll definitely need a fourth striker for the batch of four. So then we know, okay, so there's 4 positions. We knew this summer we didn't have many positions to fill. We knew already we had a strong squad, and these were the little tweaks we needed to make. And if Ivan goes, we need a striker there.
Mm-hmm.
We might need a number 10. We might need to do this. And that was kind of where we were with that. So we identified 4 or 5 positions, and then we start putting names to those positions. And then we go about seeing if we can get them in and if they're affordable.
Okay. Well, I want to jump into a couple of topics that are kind of topical just from around the world of football this week. And the first place I want to go is around cup competitions and the FA Cup. And I say this with a laugh, I guess, because, they've taken away replays and they've reduced prize money, which doesn't seem to be the most helpful way to support lower league teams through all the financial troubles that we're going to be having. And by your reaction on screen, for anyone who ends up watching this on video, it seems like you feel the same.
We were kind of expecting some news on a bailout this week. And we then get obviously news from the EFL. Well, you can have your January's money early. You can have some TV money a few months early. That's all money we'd already budgeted this year. That's not a bailout. Mm-hmm. Bailout was a 7-figure sum based on maybe year 4 or 5 of money that we could help pay back bills now, not money that we've already budgeted for November or January. So I kind of looked at that and I was like, for fuck's sake, that's after 5 months the best we can do. I'm hoping there's other news coming here. I hope that's not the EFL's best shot. And then obviously I'm on Twitter and I see the news about the FA Cup, and it was kind of like, from EFL to the FA, hold my beer. Yeah. Like, we're all struggling. The leagues are struggling. Lower league teams are struggling. Non-league teams are struggling. League One, League Two. We've got no fans allowed into the stadiums yet, and that's another conversation. And now all of a sudden they're stripping the prize money, and no replays. So, in the event we do get fans back, if Liverpool take Man United at our place to the 90th minute and get a 0-0 draw, we go straight to penalties. We don't get a chance to go to Old Trafford and get that
right.
£1.7 million that would be life-changing during a pandemic. So it drives me up the fucking wall. It's like, what are we doing here? And I wanted to tweet about it. I thought, I'll leave it because I'll just be seen as a moaner. People want to jump on it, whatever else. But I'm like, fuck me almighty. I mean, what are we doing to each other here? Less prize money, no bailout. Oh, there's some advance money. It's like, you're in serious trouble. Yeah, I'll give you next week's wages. Yeah, but what about next week when I'm in serious trouble? Yeah. So I don't know, Phil. I'm pulling what's left of my lovely hair out.
So we've already got people tweeting, making sure that are you looking well in the video? So this is one of the reasons why. I want to unpack a couple of that. Let's start. Actually, I'm going to come back to the cup competitions in a minute, the EFL. So that just seems like it's kicking the can down the road.
We have a massive amount of money in TV deals. We can go out and raise money off the back of those deals, like I said early on, from year 4 and 5, and pay them off in slow tranches over year 2 and 3 and 4. So that helps people today for this year. On top of everyone's done their budget for this year already. They all know what they're facing. We've got PAYE payments that we were allowed to put off from March and April. Right now, due. We've got deferred player wages. Right now, due. We've got a season about to start with no fans. Right now, due. And I'm happy we're playing, and I'm happy to play without fans because we need to get back playing to keep our TV deals. But we did need some sort of help. We needed the PFA to agree a pay cut. We needed the EFL to go out and raise a big batch of money, to help out football clubs. Now, if they come out with a deal next week by the time the podcast is out, I apologise for what I've said in this podcast. I'll eat humble pie. I just felt, is that it? Was that what we're getting last week? I don't know what else is coming. I'm hoping more is coming. But suffice to say, so far, it's been a disappointment. And I'm sure the football clubs feel the same.
Yeah, if you start looking at kind of factoring those future revenues, bringing those in from 3 years down the road, you've now got a salary cap. So you've not got, you're already limiting what people are going to be able to spend anyway. So you would think that that's from a budgetary perspective. You can plan now for less money coming in from the EFL. In 2 years' time, because you're not going to be able to spend as much money on wages at that point anyway.
So as an example, Peterborough, if we got an advance of 1.2 million from year 4 and 5 of our money, or year 5 and 6 of our money, whatever way you want to put it, We would then budget from next year on, not this year, from next year onwards, paying back 300 grand a year out of our budget. With the salary cap, that's easier to do. It was so we would make sure there's 300 grand taken off in costs and overheads, and we don't overspend to pay back the money plus interest. So we're not asking for money that's not due to us. We're asking for a bigger help out from advance down the road. It's not rocket science how to do this. I've been saying it for months. There are companies out there actively looking to do it because they get factoring fees and interest. So what the fuck are we waiting for? And why have the club in League One and League Two not got checks or money arriving in their bank accounts now in August or September for at least £1 million? Where is it? Because it should be already. And I've been saying this for weeks and months, and there's not enough. It's kind of died down now, and there's not enough been spoken about. But that's what's needed.
Yeah, I'm sure there will, as all those deferred tax bills and the VAT and players coming off furlough and all those expenses start racking up. I'm sure people are going to be talking about it again.
Yeah. I mean, if I showed you our cash flow for the next 3 months, you'd fall under the table, and that's most clubs. Peterborough, people have been putting off stuff for as long as they could. Now's the time where it's going to get it's going to get tasty. The bills and everything else. Sorry, it's my children here stalking me on the phone there. Sunday afternoon in Florida. So it's going to get really, really choppy, and we need a little bit of assistance, and assistance come quickly. And we've had a lot of time for this, so I'm not quite sure why we're not there yet.
And assistance doesn't take the form of cutting your FA Cup prize money, which from an FA perspective, I mean that seemed crazy to me, and it seemed crazy because we all talk in the lower leagues, and you think about non-league as well. What a lifeline an FA Cup run is. You make it through the second, third round. You're starting to be able to reinvest back in the budget. Those are big numbers. Those away days you talk about, and yet from a relative perspective, it's peanuts compared to a Premier League club. So let's cut the prize money. The winner of the FA Cup's now going to get, I don't know what the number is, something like 3 million versus 5 million. Well, I'm sure that's not going to really mean anything to them. But you cut, whether you get 20 grand of prize money for reaching the first round of the FA Cup to a non-league team, and that's the difference between being able to survive that season or not.
If we get to we usually get to the third round, fourth round. If you get to the fourth round of the FA Cup as a League One, League Two club, it's usually about 350 grand plus that you haven't budgeted for. That this season is life-changing for football. Never mind a non-league club that goes to the third or fourth round like Lincoln did a few years ago. They got to the quarterfinals. You talk about changing the landscape for a football club. So what the fuck are we doing? Cutting a cup like that? I don't understand it. I don't get the logic in it. So again, I don't know why it's been cut, because they've done away with replays. It allows the sponsor to pay less money. So when you cut this, don't play, don't do this, don't do whatever, the sponsors can cut you. I said to you about, when we finished our season prematurely, our sponsors will now be asking for rebates and refunds. That's what happens. So, again, this isn't helping any of the clubs. Knowing my luck, I've waited 15 years to get Liverpool at Anfield and Man United at Old Trafford. In the League Cup, we'll probably get Liverpool at Anfield. And in the FA Cup, we'll get Man United at Old Trafford, and there'll be no fans. Yeah. Guaranteed, this will be the year after 15 years, Lady Luck will shine and then shit on us. And then that will be the way. Guarantees.
Or you'll win and then get an away game at Morecambe in the next round or something, with all due respect to Morecambe.
Oh, God. Don't even.
So talking about low crowds in cup competitions, what about the EFL trophy? So, most fans in League One and League Two are not big fans of it. I think that, I think you've spoken in favour once you get to the later rounds of it's still a pathway to Wembley. Does it carry any less significance this year when we're going to have a crowded fixture list as well?
Look, there's a lot of money there. There's what is it, 10 grand or 20 grand for a win. There's a win, and then the last 16, you can make another 100 grand on your budget by getting quarterfinals in that. I think we made like 88 grand or something last year in it. So, that's important for clubs who are turning over £3 million or £4 million. It's 2-3% in your budget that you haven't budgeted for, particularly in a year post-COVID. I've won that trophy. And, to win any trophy is an honour. Day out at Wembley for your fans. And let me tell you, I'm leaving this earth and going to space if there aren't a lot of fans back at Wembley by March or April when this trophy is played out. So I know Coventry, when they got relegated to League Two, made like £500,000 out of getting to that final. And that probably helped them go back again from League Two to League One. And look where they are in the Championship. So
Yeah.
put all the Premier League crap about the under-21 teams. Put all that shit to the side. They're not getting into our leagues. This is just a cup trophy where we are acting like prostitutes and taking the payday from the Premier League, few them in, just for this trophy. And I love the trophy. Last year we had, I think, 8 youth graduates make their full debuts and win 3 games in the group, including against an Arsenal under-21 side with Arsenal kids worth millions, and our youngsters were brilliant. So that is good for our club. It's good for any football club. I've got no problem with that trophy. I think it's a good trophy.
So, yeah, and you talk about, the under-21s teams. It's always interesting for them. It's a little bit of an eye-opener because they're used to their academy football, and now they're coming up against, even if it's a different age, it's sometimes a different age range. Sometimes you say, you're playing the younger players in your team, but it's different when you've been playing in League Two, League One. You kind of toughened up against some of these academy kids who have the technical ability, but not necessarily ready for the fight.
Yeah, we played. We beat Chelsea in the last 16 of the trophy 2 years ago at Stamford Bridge, and their under-21 team probably cost 30 million to put together. Compared to our academy team, that cost like $5,000. And we had like a mixture of first teamers and young players. We did Arsenal last year. It's great for the under-21 Premier League players. And it's great for our players. My biggest criticism has always been with the loan system. These Premier League teams have got young players. They want their wages paid. They want them accommodated. Fuck all that. The most important thing is for them to get real men's football, live in the real world where Bentleys and Range Rovers don't pull into training ground car parks, and get adjusted to the game. That's why it's so important. Ask Harry Kane about his 7 or 8 loans he had down in the lower leagues, how that played a part in his career. It's crucial for top academies to get young players out on loan.
Now, just the last kind of question on the cups. You talked about the money that can come in from those cup competitions. Do you budget for that at all, or are you budgeting to go out in the first round of every one of them?
So my finance director was killing me up until 2 years ago, because I'd always say, look, stick $300,000 in the cash flow. We're going to do this in the cup and that in the cup and whatever. And the problem with that is you spend and then you fucking have a disaster in the cup. And then I've got to suddenly find the $200,000 difference that's not in the budget anymore. So fairness to her, I think she puts in like a basic amount of $50,000 every year. So if we go and get a £500,000 cup run this year and prize money and everything else, that will help our cash flow deficit, which is obviously very high at the moment, like every other. Very clubs, I'd say, are breaking even with no cash flow contribution from owners this year.
Yeah, I imagine, that's what we did at Bradford, and that fueled some of our growth, was doing well in the cup competitions. And actually, I think we would budget on it. And then if we knew we had assets to sell if we didn't make certain rounds. And so that's the way we'd go. We'd over budget. And then if we had a shortfall, we'd end up having to sell, sell academy prospects, sell, your star striker, whatever. But, at least you can do it with assets, with sellable assets.
And that's key. And that's where if you're a really good football club, you've got sellable assets. We're fortunate we're in that position through a pandemic. Not all clubs are in that position. But yeah, Bradford did really well in the cup runs. And I know they got rid of a lot of debt, paid owners back, up to League One. You know what I mean? Like they did some remarkable stuff, including the win at Chelsea. So that's the fairy tale. I love the fact in 3 weeks' time, we're going to have a game every 3 days. League, cups. I've been so deprived and starved of football since March. Give me 4 games a week. I'll have it. My manager won't, but I'll have it.
Yeah, unless you're a Celtic or an Aberdeen fan right now. So what if one of your players, decides to go on a jolly to Spain and then comes back without telling anybody? These seem like some pretty irresponsible things that the players are doing that are putting not just their clubs at risk, but, the competition's at risk.
Yeah, I don't buy into that. The competition's at risk. Why is the competition? Right. Okay, the guy broke. But listen, the guy's a fucking moron. What he did. Yeah, should he be fired and sold? And I've seen some. No, absolutely not. He did something really stupid. Footballers have done worse and got away with worse. So I'm sure he's going to be punished. He's already been vilified. The Aberdeen players, the same thing. You know what I mean? They've been vilified. They get punished. Look, we're living in a new fucking reality. And I hate that word, new normal. I want the old normal back. But I was in quarantine for 2 weeks here. I did 2 COVID tests. I followed the mandate. Nobody rang me from the government. I was here for 2 weeks in my house. I never left my house. I'd shopping delivered. I did 2 COVID tests in the space of 8 days purposely because I wanted to wait a few days. Why couldn't, after the first COVID test, when I'd done it 4 days in, could I not be allowed to leave? If we've got all this testing and people are testing, and if that guy made that mistake, he's an idiot, and they tested on the Sunday and everyone was fine. Okay, he's made a mistake, you're going to punish him, but like, the league's going to stop, you just said there. Well, why are we stopping leagues and businesses again? At the end of the day, these players now are pretty much having to live in a bubble. They're not allowed to do this, they're not allowed to do that. But like, look at my situation. Why should anyone have to sit indoors for 2 weeks if they actually have the opportunity to buy testing and prove they're negative? And that was my case. That makes no logical sense. I'd love all these science fucking geniuses from the Imperial to explain that one to me. Yeah, but sometimes it can take 8 days to come out of your system. Really? Okay, well, I did a second one after 8 days and I was negative again. So why another 6 days? And then you're getting everyone on holiday. Go on holiday. Britain's open. Hang on a second. Come back off your holiday. Who's making these rules? Yeah. I mean, I don't know why society's allowing this to happen and allowing to be herded like sheep about you have to do this, you have to do this. You can tell how passionate I am about it because I'm sick of like the overreach and the draconian rules that are in place. And I'm not trying to downplay the virus. We all know how dangerous it is. Yeah. But the idea that this guy would lose his job or that Celtic would be kicked out of the league or deducted points or the Scottish League would shut down, fucking do me a favour. All right, it's done now. Maybe put in more rules in place that if that happens or whatever else. I mean, how the hell does no one know a guy goes to Spain for a day?
Right.
I mean, that astonishes me as well. And look, maybe he's a few brain cells short of a full bag. Who knows? I mean, because I can't imagine any other player would do that. For the Aberdeen players who went out for dinner or for a few drinks, okay, they're young lads. They went out, they had drinks. Were they allowed to go out for dinner? Were they allowed to have a few drinks? I'm not quite sure of the rules in Scotland. I believe it was quite strict up there. Yeah, I would say to my players, be sensible. But Christ, I mean, they're human beings. What are they meant to do?
Yeah, and I mean they're together every day. So I mean, you've got your training camp that's coming up this coming week. All the players are going to be in close proximity. Anyway, it's just about being sensible and taking some personal responsibility, I think. And everyone's trying to regulate against that because unfortunately some people aren't doing that, and so everyone's affected.
I get it, and I understand that you can affect an older person, you can affect someone with an underlying condition, you can spread out wildfire and have a load of teams that can't play. What I didn't understand was, if Aberdeen lost 8 players and Celtic lost 2, why you have a squad? So if you've got a squad of 14, why not play the game? Why stop-start nature of it? At the end of the day, we have squads. If you have 3 infected and you've got 18 fit, the game, there should be a limit on it. Do you know what I mean? As long as you've got 14 healthy people, you should play the game. I'm not. The stop-start thing drives me mad, Phil. Go on holiday, don't go on holiday. Oh, close back down. It's like you're either all in or you're not. And we've got to learn how to deal with this. And as a sport, we've got to do the best we can. I've got all the stuff from St. George's. I mean, Christ almighty, the rules. I've got, walking around St. George's. I'm not allowed to take my mask off. I'll only keep it in my hotel. I mean, this is the fucking world we're living in right now. And there's only us and one other team at St. George's.
Okay.
Most of the facilities, the restaurant, whatever, they're not open. So again, you're in a bubble. But, I mean, look, we've got football back on, so I suppose I can't moan too much. And this is the price you pay. But it's always that thing that you said earlier on, well, they're just going to cancel it. I hate that shit hanging over our head.
So what are you going to do at St. George's then? You're there for the week, you're there for a few days. How are you going to keep people busy? How are you going to keep the players busy when they're all together in this bubble?
Yeah, I leave tomorrow morning. I get there at 12. We're there for 5 days. There's a lot of sessions. There's 2-3 sessions a day. Okay. Meals in the evening. We've got football on in the meal room we have. There's Champions League games. There's UEFA Cup games. Mm-hmm. We've got games, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday. We've got then a practice game between ourselves on Saturday. I'll be meeting with some of the players to talk about next year, bonuses, this, that, whatever else. I got a couple of players also to speak about whether or not they're staying or leaving, that kind of thing. I'll be meeting with a manager, with Barry. We'll be having a Zoom call with my partners as well. My other partner, Randy's with me at George's. Jason's back in Canada. So we'll be having a 3-4 hour powwow about the season ahead and what we got to do. So it's usually pre-season camps are a really, really good way of getting everyone together on the same page, aligning everyone's interests and targets. And that's what we'll be doing. It's great for camaraderie.
Mm-hmm. Now, from an investment perspective, I imagine these things aren't cheap. You look at whether it's going to St. George's probably because, that's the only choice that's available for you to go away and do something right now versus a preseason tour. But there's a lot of money that goes into these things, I imagine.
we had up. I wanted to go to Ireland. My manager didn't want to play. I wanted to go to Scotland. My manager didn't want to get me a coach. So he's like, so basically, originally it was Portugal or Spain. That usually costs about 50 grand. To be fair, yeah, I mean, it's cost us probably nearly 40 grand for this. So it's not anything from going to Portugal or Spain. But I'm told it's top facilities. And I believe it's us and one other club are in the Hilton Hotel. So, we've got the best pitches, the best facility. We got in early because we got back early and we wanted to plan to succeed as opposed to fail. So that's why we thought, okay, let's go St. George's. Do you know what I mean? If we're not going to go to Scotland or Ireland, players don't want to get in the plane or in a coach, do St. George's.
What does success look like? When you look back at an investment on something like this, is there something tangible or is it more just a feeling of, we're kind of got this togetherness and we're on the right track? Or do you look at it from a more of a data perspective that there's certain things that you're wanting to come out of it?
Success looks like the end of the week, you feel mission accomplished. The players are gelling and they're singing songs, they're doing their invitations. You get to meet the players, you get amongst the players, the management staff you haven't met yet, maybe there's new staff. It's just a real chance for the club to come together, the football side of the club. Chance then for the manager to sit with the owners and go through, right, we want to win the league, we want to do this in the trophy, these are the targets. Sometimes we're trying to get players that we're still short of, and we have players fly to Spain, and do medicals on the second day of Spain. There's just a lot of activity goes into that week. We'll have some little games at night time. It's good for the spirits for everyone. It's been so long since we've all been together. So this probably more than ever is probably one of the most important camps. And it's a chance to remind our squad that they've had a year of their career stolen from them in the championship.
Yeah.
So
that motivator.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of those players, if they'd gone to the championship, they'd be on 3 times the money.
Yeah.
So those players have had a year taken from them. I'd like to see a response to that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go into a break. We're going to come back with some listener Q&A. When we come back, we got something on, let's see, a couple of questions I want to bring up generally about football, and then one which is non-football. Hi everybody, welcome back. So as I just mentioned before the break, we're going to have some listener Q&A. And the first question that I have is from Michael Baker. Michael asks, he states to start with that several clubs who have changed managers in pre-season this year have gone down the route of promoting from within. He said from a supporter perspective, this always looks like it's the cheap option. And I can add from my own personal experience the last few years that it doesn't often work out very well. We had one that got the can, 6 weeks after he was appointed. First of all, what's your view on hiring from within once when you've sacked your manager? Are you wanting a big clear out of everybody, or are there times when it makes sense to promote from within?
Hard truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's the cheap option. Yeah. So usually, so that's not to say now. For example, Bristol have promoted Dean Holden. Dean's a friend of mine, and I think he's an amazing young coach, and that one could be very successful.
Mm-hmm.
Very successful. But usually in our leagues and stuff like that, when you go within, it is the cheaper option. I did it way back when. I got to the stage where I spunk so much money, and I was like, I've got to rein it in for a year. And I fired the manager, and I was like, what'll I do? And I put the youth manager in charge for 4 games, 5 games. He won 5 games at the end of the season. And I was like, oh, Christ, okay, looks like you've got the magic potion. I didn't realize it was just typical footballers. They react. They want a manager sacked. They don't do it. They suddenly then, when a manager's sacked, they go on a winning run. That's so football. So I hired him. He was the cheap option, with all due respect to him. I don't want, he's a great guy, but he never managed the football club. And he probably wasn't qualified for the job at that time. And he was a very good coach. And he went on, he's worked for, the English FA and everything else.
Yeah.
But it was a disaster for me. It just, it didn't work. The only other person I brought from within was Grant McCann, but that wasn't a cheap option. I planted him as a youth coach, then he was an assistant manager.
It was like part of a career ladder.
Like a succession line I was trying to plan.
Yeah.
And then it was time. And he's a good football manager. So, that's one of those things. And look, when you fire a manager, usually the people that go first are him and the assistant. Usually, because the assistant's very loyal to the manager as a pair. You don't usually fire the analyst, the physio, the sports scientist until maybe a new manager comes in.
Yeah.
And the new manager doesn't fancy them. doesn't, fancy their talent, skill set, or wants his own people, then you might have to change the whole lot. It's better if you only have to change one or two.
Or the old manager gets a new job and takes them all with them.
That happens too. That's football. We had, Gavin Strachan left us this summer. We obviously, compensation in his contract. There was nothing we could do. If Celtic meet that, then he goes, and he went to Celtic. So we were fortunate to bring in a top England under-18 coach in Mark Robson, who'd been with us before, who's an excellent coach, and he's now our assistant manager. So that's life at football clubs. Staff do come and go.
Now, when you sack a manager, you always at least read from the outside, we've been inundated with CVs. And, you suddenly get stories in the press of, and I won't name, specific players, but, players who have done well for themselves as a player, and they're looking for their first step on the ladder, if you will, from a management perspective. And, people then start getting excited. This player who played for England now wants, to come and manage Bradford in League Two. But they very rarely get the job. So I guess my question is, when I'm sure you have the same, where you get all these coming in. I mean, what's your position on taking somebody that hasn't had a football manager job if you haven't kind of been grooming them for that position from within?
My best manager in my 15 years as an owner is Darren Ferguson. He was a player. So I'm not against that. That can work. It can work lower down. I don't like when the big jobs go to ex-players and they haven't earned, their crust. They haven't gone out there and done the dirty business. Like Sol Campbell, whether you like him or not, I respect him because he went right down to Macclesfield, then to Southend. He's tried. You then have other managers who just get handed dream gigs. They get massive salaries. They get big clubs in the Championship, big clubs in the Premier League, and they haven't served their time. And that probably frustrates a lot of lower league managers who've done it the right way. And they've done the hard yards. They've washed kits. They've worked 30 grand a year. They've made their way up. And then they see some guy who's come out of earning 100 grand a week is handed an unfucking believable job with no qualifications. So my advice to all footballers, if they want to go into coaching and managing, I've done this a million times, is do your badges, do your time. Don't turn your nose down at any club. It doesn't matter who the club is. Bognor Regis, wherever it might be. You want an opportunity at coaching and managing, dive in with both hands and both feet. Take it. So I'm not against an ex-player wanting to be a manager. When we fire a manager, within 10 minutes, I'll have phone calls from agents, phone calls from famous people in the game who have a friend who wants a job. You've no idea. We're inundated. The last count was, I think, 135 CVs within 36 hours. Wow. You've got to remember, in the Football League, there's only 72 jobs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of qualified people out of work. So it's a coveted role, football management.
So I have a question from Danny, and I'll go for Gloriu, the pronunciation, I'm probably hopelessly attempting that, who's a Newport County fan. And Danny asks a question. This is when we were talking about what do we do with the pandemic and, helping from a reducing cost perspective. There was a discussion around regionalising League Two and below. So putting League Two and the National League together into a North and South. Where do you stand on that then?
Yeah, I don't like it. There's some romance in me having to travel 7 hours to Accrington Stanley on a Tuesday night. Not for me. Not into that at all. There's nothing wrong with our leagues. I understand the travel's expensive. It's part and parcel of being a professional football club. Maybe for non-league, I know they've done that. They've regionalised it below the conference. But no, I'm not for me. Not my cup of tea.
Right. Now, for travel, are you driving day of game to most of your away trips, or are you staying over?
We usually have a budget. It costs us about $2.5 grand for each away trip. Mm-hmm. So what we usually do is give the manager 12 to 13 of those out of the 23 away games. If he goes over budget on one trip, he'll have to cut one off the list. And that's pre-done in advance with the manager. And some managers I've wanted to go overboard. They wanted to bring 28 fucking people to an away trip. And it's just like they've gone at $4 grand a trip. And you're like, after 5, they're already over budget. So you've had to come down hard because they think, you're loaded, so you just pay it. Doesn't work like that. You have to be strict. Now, I know some clubs who don't have the money travel up in a day. Right. And sometimes when I've seen the performances we've had away from home, I felt like saying, well, fuck you lot. You're not staying at 4-star hotel. You can travel up 9 hours on the and back. Because, that's what you deserve.
Yep. Yeah. We had an owner who talked about, after a particularly bad away trip, wanting all the players to come down to the ticket office so that they could get abused by the supporters in the ticket office after the game.
I once at a game, it was Fleetwood a few years ago, and I took a car to Heathrow. I flew from Heathrow to Manchester. I took a train from Manchester to Blackpool, a taxi from Blackpool to Fleetwood to see the game, and then the same on the way home. We got stuffed 2-0. We were absolutely fucking rubbish. I left 5 minutes early. I walked past our coach driver and said, "Listen, close the doors, get a new coach, and go back to the club." And what about all the players? I'm like, "Listen, get out of here." And then obviously then Sen came over and I was like, "I can't do that." But I wanted the players to take the trip I took and what our fans take to go to a game after that performance. I was just enraged. It was like 4 years ago. So trust me, I know that feeling.
Amazing race for footballers to get back home after a game.
All their Gucci bags under their arm.
Now, the last question I have for this week is the non-football one, and it's from Robert Zappolo. And Robert asks, we talk a lot about the highs in football and in business. He'd love just to hear a little bit about the lows, failures that you've moved on, and really how do you approach that? And maybe if you can even point out one or two, maybe a football one and a non-football one that have, how did you overcome that failure? How did it change the way that you think or approach things the next time around? I think he's just looking for some insight into basically bouncing back from adversity.
Sure. So I guess it'd be like a fighter. You get knocked down, and they say, it's getting back up again. Otherwise you just throw the towel in. And look, throw the towel in. And I understand you get to the end of the line and you're like, I can't do this anymore. And sometimes the best choice you can make when you get in a bad situation is throw the towel on and move on and learn from the mistake. And don't make it worse. Don't exasperate the situation. I had a football magazine a few years ago, and it was a brilliant magazine. And we were up there in sales. It cost me a lot of money. And it was rivaling 442. And it was like number 3. We'd done all the distribution. We'd opened an office. We'd hired a lot of people, 20-odd people. And after a period of time, it was just losing money. And I got advice off somebody in football who was actually in the media game who said, look, digital media where it is, print media is a waste of fucking time. Shut that down. He was like, how much are you losing? And I was like, 30 grand a month. And he was like, stop it tomorrow. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not a quitter. Because not being a quitter, he said, it'll be the most sensible decision you've ever made. Take your losses, move on, your wounds, and learn from it. And I did. And sometimes when you come out of your comfort zone and try and do something that you're not good at or you're not an expert at, you can make some massive errors. And I've done that. So I tend to, other businesses I go into, I tend to make sure people who know that industry, that business, if I don't know it, I have to go and get someone really good. Because you can succeed. Don't think you can succeed in something you've never done just because you're good at something. I was good at real estate, I was good at football. It just doesn't work like that unless you're a lucky lottery winner. And that can happen.
We don't really have the Midas touch where you can, apply the same principles exactly to every single different industry.
That's it. I had the Midas touch for a long time, and everything just turns to gold. And then suddenly it turns to shit when you make a bad decision, and that shit can keep happening. But don't let that deter you either. To say that I don't quit. I'm not a quitter, but I've made some really ruthless decisions at times when I've had to, and I've learned that as I've got older. When I was younger, I'd probably exasperate the situation and keep going and keep going and keep going. I always look back on my time in real estate. When the recession came, I should have been more ruthless, and I wasn't. I tried to keep up, 2,000 staff on. It was just impossible. I should have cut a load of them to keep the business alive, and I could have stayed alive, but I didn't. I made the wrong choices, not decisions, choices. So you learn with experience from that, but don't let that deter you from opening a business, rolling through a rough patch, being positive minded. I still bounce out of bed every day thinking I'm a winner, thinking I'm the best, thinking I can conquer whatever I try to do. Even if I've failed at something, I will still have that mindset until the day I've left the earth. Because that's just who I am. I'll probably thank my dad for that, because he always instilled that in me through his own successes and failures.
And just reflecting, I think what's hard, you talked about the Midas touch earlier, what would have been the most dangerous thing is you go through that and you don't realize the decisions that you made that were the wrong decisions or the wrong choices. And then you just keep on making them again the next time around. So if you can just try and grow from it, at least it gives you a head start the next time around.
Yeah. I'm one of those people where you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and don't make the same mistake twice. Mm-hmm. Competence. You can make a mistake, that's great, but don't make the same one twice, because then that's just complete incompetence. And that goes to people who run their own businesses. So I've learned those as well, and I've had some hard blows. And that's the hard truth.
All right. Well, with that, let's wrap up the show, Darragh, this week. I want to thank you for your time, and thank you for the listeners for listening in, for staying with us. And we'll be back next week, Wednesday, August the 19th. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate just to reach out. You can send them to Darragh on Twitter at DMAC102 or myself at P. Ideson, or email. We've got an email address at contact@hardtruthfootball.com, and we'll make sure that we ask those questions on a future episode. Darragh, I hope you have a great time at the training camp this week.
Thanks, Phil. Enjoy yourself in California, my liberal. Be safe for the family, and to all the viewers listeners out there, thank you for the support. We've ramped up this week in figures, so the ratings are going up, and the podcast seems to be very popular. So keep listening, keep supporting, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, and your feedback, as a listener in the ratings, reviews, whether it's privately, just help us every single week, make improvements, because that's what we're all about. We want to keep learning ourselves. We want to keep making a podcast as interesting and as impactful as it can possibly be. So don't be shy.
Adios, everyone.